The original Isaiah chapter 53 consisted of Isaiah chapter 52, verses 13 through 15. So from Isaiah 52, verses 13 through 15, and the entire Isaiah chapter 53 was Isaiah 53. But it was a poor chapter break by those who did the translation. They broke off the chapter. So it was a poor chapter break. Isaiah was a Jewish prophet who addresses the Jewish people. Those of us who are Gentile believers or non-Jewish believers, we personalize Isaiah 53 for ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? Because we are Judeo-Christians. So there's nothing wrong with it. But the original audience of Isaiah 53 was the Jewish people. They were the original audience. When you read Isaiah chapter 53, verse number 1, you get a understanding and get some clarity that it was written to Jewish people, or it's the Jewish people who are speaking. The believing Jewish remnant who would be saved in the future took a look back at how their ancestors missed Isaiah 53. And they mourn. They mourn at how they missed Isaiah 53. And they rejected the suffering servant who was their Messiah. So the believing Jewish remnant who will be saved in the future took a look back at how their ancestors missed Isaiah chapter 53. They ignored Isaiah 53 and they hated it. They didn't even like reading it. It wasn't even read in the synagogues. It was known by the rabbis as the torture chamber of the Old Testament. The torture chambers, or the torture chamber of the Old Testament. But they missed the beauty of Isaiah 53. And this believing Jewish remnant, or the Messianic Jews, they lament and they mourn. And they looked at how their ancestors rejected Jesus. Yes, the suffering servant passage is a prophecy of how the Messiah will provide salvation through his death on the cross in the future. Yes, it is. But it was written to the Jewish people originally. But we can still take part in it now. We can still take part in it, and it's still a valid application. But they were the original audience, and they're taking a look back. That's why in chapter 53, verse 1, in our translation, it says, who have believed our report? So it's the Jewish people speaking through the eyes of Isaiah. Who believes our report? Who firmly and with conviction believe this report? Right? With firmness and conviction believe this report. And whom the arm of the Lord shall be revealed. They had come to grasp that the suffering servant, the Lord Jesus, their Messiah, was the arm of the Lord, or the power of God. But their ancestors missed it. In last year's video, I'll link it in the description box so you can watch it. Go back, watch it, and listen to it. It's an audio video. But I said in a video, the Jewish people, or their Jewish ancestors, missed him because they had the same view that toxic feminists and toxic misogynists have of people who they classify as not like them. They don't have the money, they don't have the status, they don't have the credentials, they don't have the clout, and they see a person like that as average. That's how their Jewish ancestors, our Jewish ancestors, looked at the Messiah as average. They hated him. They rejected him because of his appearance, identity, his origin. When you read Isaiah 53, they hated him. They despised him. They just despised him. They hated him. But they loved what he can do for them. They hated him for who he was. But they loved him because of what he can do. That's something to think about. They hated him because he didn't fit the role. He didn't fit the description. But they loved him because of what he can do. And for that, he was a man of sorrows, a man of deep pain, acquainted with grief. I thought about this, and I'm going to wrap this video up. Be back in another one. Our Lord is worth following, and he's worth worshiping. And here is why. Every other founder of a world religion see themselves as superior to their followers and their worshipers. They see themselves as superior, especially these human beings. They see themselves as superior to their followers. And so, because they're superior to their followers are inferior to them. But aren't you glad that we have a God who is superior, but he became inferior, just like us? He was the Word made flesh, and he lived among us. He knows what it feels like to be just like us. He can relate. He can empathize. He can sympathize. He knows what it feels like to be just like us. That's why he's worshiping and he's word following, because he was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief.